Good afternoon, class. So I was just taking attendance, of those students who are actually here, knowing that several of you are going to be watching this as it's being recorded right now. And um, just a reminder to those of you who will take this as a recording, it's important for you that when you watch this, that you let me know that you have watched this, and any of the past speeches that you talks that I have given. I don't have everyone letting me know. I will be sending out a notice to you saying, did you watch these ones? So if you have, be sure to let me know immediately just so I can mark that down. So just wanted to make sure we understand that right from the get-go here. Let me open in prayer and I'll begin. God, thank you for today. Thank you for all these students who are sitting in this class right now, and then those who will be watching it after it's been recorded. So I pray your blessing as we are slowly and surely coming towards the end of this semester, and there's still much that all of us need to do with all of our courses. So I pray your blessing in Christ's name. Amen. Um, I got a few reminders and then just a couple of comments that I want to make. I mentioned to you last day, it still holds true, that your next speech is coming up. It is the persuasive speech. Now, some of you still need to hand in your past speech. I have graded. There are a couple of you who asked because of circumstances an extension. That I understand that. There is one speech of a student handed in, and I have not been able to open it. I'll be writing you just to let you know. So far, I've not been able to get into that speech. And a couple of you that still need to get that speech to me. There's one student, I do have your, one or two students, I have your speeches, but I was inundated with speeches in grading. And so I'll be doing a little bit more grading tomorrow and emailing you if you haven't had it in, just to remind you I need that. So that first speech, we're starting to get that one completed, which is great. Now, I told you, and I'm just saying it again, that the next speech on the syllabus is due next Monday, but please listen to this. If you hand it in on Monday of next week, which is the, wait a minute, here is the 29th. If you hand it in there on that day, anytime during the day, doesn't have to be during the class time, but anytime during the day, you will get an additional 2% added to the score for that speech. So it could be the difference of getting from a B minus to a B or a B to a B plus. I'm not saying it will, but it could, or B plus to an A minus. Those are possibilities. So by getting it in, it's 2 additional percentage points added to the speech percentage score. Okay, so please take note of that. But if you're saying I need space and time, you can hand it in 1 week later, which would be on the 7th of April, and it will not be thought of or seen as being late. So I'm giving you that to give you a little more space. Okay, just be aware that I need those passed. I need speech number 2 from those who haven't handed in. Speech number 3, if you hand it in on Monday of next week, it's a 2% added, or you can hand it in the following Monday, and it will be seen as being on time. As you know, because next week is speech week, where you're supposed to be handing in the speeches, but you can have the additional time. Just next week, we don't meet again, okay? It would be just as if we were doing the speeches in class, except that I'm going to be grading your speeches. So it's not that the course isn't happening, but it's happening in a unique way. And that's all because of COVID. There are, I think, one evaluation. I think I mentioned this. There's one evaluation. There's actually 2 evaluations I haven't done yet. One of them is because the speech it's not coming through, so I'll be emailing you. The other one is it just came in and I haven't had time to get to that. So if you haven't received my email with your score yet, it's because of that reason, if you're that student. I mentioned last day, and I thought I should share this with you about my wife and the fact that she went in for surgery on Friday of last week. It was cancer surgery. And we've known about the issue of cancer visiting us since January. And we've been quiet as we've just been going through the process of just how serious this cancer is serious, but just exactly how serious this cancer is. And about 3-4 minutes before our time, 1 o'clock, so just over 2 hours ago, the doctor who operated it, she is a cancer surgeon for our hospital here, one of a few, and she phoned to tell Joanne what they had to do is they had to cut the cancer out, and they do a wide berth to try to make sure they got all the cancer. And she did phone back. We don't get the official report till April 6th, but she did tell Joanne that everything looked like they got everything out, because when they went and looked, they did testing on the flesh around where, past where the cancer was, to see if there was any cancer there. And they said they didn't find any, which is good, which means strong likelihood is that they got all of the cancer. On April 6th, Joanne will be getting a second report from a, not sure what you call this person who does a further diagnosis to determine what treatment likely will be needed. And it's likely that she will need to have some radiation treatments. More for just making sure that they got all the cancer. So sometimes it's being over conservative, but rather that than leave the possibility of it not being right. So literally right now, she came home. The surgery was in the morning of, I took her in the hospital on the morning of Friday and brought her home in the evening of Friday. And, you know, she certainly was sleeping a lot and so forth, and still does. In fact, she's lying on the couch right now, sleeping, and but is stronger. She's been able to go for walks with me when I've taken our dog out for a walk. But now, both in the morning and the evening, she's been able to go up and down the street, which is good. And she's been on the phone talking to various people, letting them know. We didn't really share this with anybody. So I guess what I'm saying is it's really good news. I mean, it's cancer. That's not good news, but it's really good news in light of the fact that it's cancer, or at least it seems to be really good news. And also just to let you know that maybe I was off a little bit in my teaching with you. I have no idea how you might have perceived me. Maybe you didn't notice anything. It probably was in light of this. Okay, so it's just one of those things you go through in life at some point, not necessarily cancer, but something. And it makes you realize that life's brief and that you should take life seriously and yet enjoy life. And so we're grateful in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic that the medical world was still able to take care of her, and that things seemed to work out really well. And that, so we're kind of grateful for that. So I wanted to share that with you because I had mentioned to you the other day that we were dealing with this issue of cancer, and things seem to be going along really well. So now, just a reminder again, we don't meet next week because you either have handed in your speech and I'm working on them, or you will be working on them because if you're going to hand it in the week after. So just be aware. This is not time off for me. You're still having as much class time as you would if you were, and I'm having as much time with you normally as I would if we were meeting in person. I much prefer meeting in person, and everything is pointing to the likelihood that the possibility is that we will be meeting in the spring, the summer, in the fall. And I'm looking forward to that experience. if you come on campus, like if campus is open in the fall, if it is open, and you see me, and you know figure out who I am, I'll be the guy with the white hair. Um, you know, come up and introduce yourself to me, even though we've met via online this way. Come up and say, hi, and I was in your, and give me the, you know, the 281 and, you know, A or UA or I2. Those are the three classes I have. So in your case, UA, to say, my name is, and I was in your class. So then I can, you know, actually meet you. That would be kind of a fun thing. I prefer meeting students in person than in this setting. So now we're coming towards the end of the semester. And by the way, this is my second class in a row, and my voice starts to get a little bit hoarse, and so that's why I use that as an excuse to drink some pop. And I told you at the beginning of the semester that there are two really critical things in public speaking. And there's many things, I didn't mean that. There aren't other things important. But I said in regard to this course, I said this course is about understanding the science of public speaking. That's the principles. And then the art. What's the difference? Well, I have this evaluation form. Hopefully you can see on the screen, because I'm going to walk through it with you as we look at that speech that you were supposed to watch and talk about her speech. And really what you see here are the main important, and there's more, parts to the science of public speaking. And it's the principles. And the principles are so necessary and critical to understand. And the other part is the art of public speaking. And that's really where you as a student begin to learn to understand yourself, your personality, your approaches, but using the science, the discipline of the science, then using your uniqueness and blending them together. That's what makes this course happen. That's the two most important things. And in regard to the science, everything we talked about in class is not on this sheet. For instance, I don't have listening on here. I don't have one-way or two-way communication theory on here. I have really some of the key principles to giving a speech on here. And you gave your introductory speech. We've done some lectures, and then you gave your first speech, and most of you got that back already, although not all of you. I'm still waiting for a few more. And either by next Monday or the Monday following, you're going to have your last main speech that you have to give, where you do the same thing. You develop it, you record it, you send it to me via link, YouTube with a link to me, like we've been doing. And the whole time, my desire is that as you're giving your speech, that you understand that there's a science. And I become a little more particular on the science as each type of speech goes by. So the last speech, I'm expecting you to be more informed and more aware, and be willing to put before me a speech where I can use this form in evaluating you. And of course, I'll be using the same form for your next speech. And then I invite you to use this form as you get ready to do the final exam. Now, I don't want you to send me this form, but rather you can use this form as you watch a speech, because that's what the final exam is. You're going to critique a 7-8 minute speech, and you have to write a 1,000 to 1,200 word critique. So please don't just say this person did good. That's not critiquing. What was the strength? Why would you say it was strong, or why would you say it needs to be developed further? And so it's important that you understand that I'm looking for you to show analysis of your speech as you're giving it. Excuse me. So you can use this. And so what I'm doing today is just walking you through that speech. I sent you a speech, the link to a speech of a former student of mine. If you didn't see it, you got the email. Go back and watch it. Watch it in light of what I say. And then learn from that. Otherwise, if you've watched it, then listen to what I've got to say, because today I'm going to be talking about this speech. Okay, and you'll get a good grip about where I come from regarding the speech and understand the way I look at doing this evaluation, etc. And so how I evaluate your next speech. This was a persuasive speech that you were watching, and that's the next speech that you're giving. And then also kind of just help you understand what I'm looking for when it comes to the final exam. Whatever you do in the final exam, don't just say this person done a good job. That's not good English. I want you to take the parts and break it down, strengths and limitations. So I just want to walk you through the speech so you get a feel of where I'm coming from. And so you will do this when you do your own critique, and then also you'll be aware of what I'll be doing when I get your next speech. Okay, that's what I'm going to be doing right now, is just talking through this with you. So let me get started. I'm just basically going to go right from the top all the way down to the bottom. Going to talk about all the parts here. Again, I mark it like you already know for excellent, good, average, fair, weak, and that's the E, G, A, F, W on each one of these areas here. And there are 30 of items here. So let's get started. As I watched her speech, and maybe I should give you a background to her. She actually was in my class in 2019, in the fall of 2019. And I said to her, would you mind visiting one of my classes in the spring, in January of 2020? And this is just before COVID came on us. And would you give that same speech that you just gave? And would you be willing to allow me to record it? And then I can use it in my class. And she said, absolutely, glad to do that. And so she did. She came in. She came in January 2020, and I recorded it. It was a live audience. And I used this speech last semester as one of my exam speeches. I'm not going to be using it this time. And she gave me permission to do that. And I appreciated it. One little trap she fell into, it was slight because she was fairly good, is the first time she gave it, it was very fresh. First time she's ever given this speech. And you know, the nerves are a little higher and the energy is a little different. The second time she gave it was when I recorded what you are the ones watching. I had a live audience and you heard the clapping after the speech. And she did a really good job overall. And you'll hear my comments and you'll see that. But there was a little edge missing from when she first gave it. And it was because she knew the speech. She'd given it before. And so she wasn't all hum about it, but she was a little more relaxed, more than she should have been. But she still did a good job. So you got to be careful. You ever have to give the same speech more than once, be careful. The second time you can get into the trap and think, oh, I've done this. I know what I'm doing. But every audience is different. Every dynamic can be different, and you have to take those into consideration. So let me get started. As I walk this through, and as you literally do the final exam, this is kind of what you should be thinking about. Okay, number one, let's look at the introduction of the speech. Number one, gaining and maintaining audience attention. How did I see how she did? Well, overall of the introduction, overall, she did a good job. She did a good job. If you get a G from me on any one of these items, that's like 80%. If you get an A average, that's like 60%. if I give you a circle of a G and an A, I'm saying that's 70%. If I give you an E and a G, that's 90%. E is perfect. Hard to get though. Sometimes you do. Okay, and so forth. So um, be aware that these scores are like 100, 80, 60, 40, 0. Weak means you didn't do a good job at all. Now, wait a minute, did I say that right? 100, 80, 60, 40, 20. There, say that right. So when I looked at how she did about gaining audience attention, I gave her and maintaining it. I gave her a G on this speech. I'm looking down at I have the evaluation form here in front of me that I'm using, and I gave her a G there. She did a good job. She got an A minus, is what I'm saying. Solid A minus on that. She could have done a little more to have sharpened it, but she did a good job. You know, sharing about, if you recall, if you watched it yet, about, you know, those monsters under our bed as a baby, a child, I should say, and they scare us. But in real life, there are in different life issues, there are things to be concerned about, and that's kind of what she was doing. She did a good job. She got our attention. Where was the speech going? Well, she's not going to share that right away. It's going to take time for us to pick that up. And so I was quite, you know, generally speaking, quite pleased with gaining and maintaining. She did hold our attention the whole time, did a good job that way. Okay. Now, relating the topic to the audience, I gave her between a G and an A. I gave her basically a 70% here. It was 70% is not a bad score. You know, I mean, 70% is a B minus. And so basically that's what she got, was a B minus in the area of relating the topic to the audience. And the reason she got the score is that when she spoke, she was speaking about an issue on journalism, about keeping the lights on, that relates very well to a Canadian and a North American culture. We believe in the freedom of the press, and I strongly support freedom of the press, because the freedom of the press are able to hold feet of leadership accountable, hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, and hold them accountable for what they're saying. And I thought that she did a good, really, she did an okay job there, except for one major thing. Not all my students are from North America. Not all of them come from a political background related to free enterprise, to the people that govern us are voted in at different times, like for every 4 years or whatever. Some come from very different backgrounds related to that. And she did not acknowledge that in her speech. She talked about how important it is keeping the lights on related to journalism, but in some countries, you could lose your life doing that. Okay, the culture is not the same, and she did not acknowledge that. She didn't state it in such a way as this is significantly connected to a North American or to a free world approach. And if, you know, saying if you come from a different country, then please put this through your personal grid and experience and understanding what I am saying. That was missing. She did not do enough audience analysis. Remember, we talked about audience analysis as being an important part of our process of developing a speech. She simply did not at all acknowledge the fact that there were people from different parts of the world. And so that definitely impacted how I scored her. It was missing. And we talked about that after, and she acknowledged that she had not, in fact, thought about that in regard to a different classroom, and should have, knowing that students from Trinity Western come from different parts of the world. So you see, as we go to the next speech, I'm becoming more and more, I'm expecting more. Because now you've had the evaluation used on you in a speech you gave. We used this to evaluate a previous speech. Now I'm evaluating a speech. So I'm trying to get you more and more comfortable with this. Number 3 on the introduction, relating the topic to the speaker, establishing the right to speak in regard to this. She did an excellent / good job. She got like 90%. She made it very clear that this was important to her, that she was majoring in journalism at Trinity Western University, and that she was very career oriented and minded regarding the issue of journalism. It really added credibility to what she was going to say, because this is her life. This is what she loves on a professional level. And so she really did do a very good job doing that, relating the topic to herself. Remember, the audience wants to know, do you have the right to speak on this? You have to establish that. Every speech you give, even if people know it, you still remind them that you have those credentials, that passion, that interest, that education, whatever it is that helps establish the right to speak on the topic. She did an excellent job there. Yes, she could have taken it slightly to another level, but what she did was a solid A minus work on that. The purpose statement thesis was clear. The purpose statement was there. I felt she got a G/A. It was good. In fact, if you get an average, you're doing okay. A good is better than an average. A good / average is in between the two. And she did do a good job. I really did feel, though, that she could have made it a little bit more clear than she did. It was okay. She could have made it a little bit more clear as I was listening to it. So I understood what she was doing and appreciated that fact. But I still felt the purpose statement needed to be even that much clearer. The audience needs to know what you're talking about. The 5th area is the quality of forecasting the organization of the speech. She got an EG here. She did an excellent job. She forecasted what her organization of the speech would be. Now remember, these 5 areas here are all make up the introduction, and they all should be in that order. And when you go in that order, it's kind of like going ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. And people can follow, and you might think, oh, that sounds so artificial. It's not artificial to the listener of a speech. All this is putting a structure to a speech. We know when you build a building, you have structures that are set up first before you ever put the walls on. You need that. Okay, you do need structure, and that's precisely what this is about. And when you take this structure, the science, and you use your artistic personality, skills, and abilities, and using those, people appreciate that, because you see the reality. I told you, really, the audience have questions, so they don't necessarily think of these questions in their mind per se, but they have these 5 questions going through their mind, or something like this. Like, first of all, so what are you all about? That's where you got to gain their attention. You got to gain their attention so they're focusing in on you. Then they're sitting there listening to you, and they're saying, so what's this got to do with me? That's where you have to relate the topic to your audience. And then they sit back and think, so what right do you have to talk about this? How does this relate to you? Now, they may not be saying those questions in their mind the way I am, but as you answer the questions, they kind of go, good, oh, good. You need to let your audience know that you have a right to talk on this topic. How? Whatever that happens to be, whether it's your education, whether it is courses you've taken, whether it is books you've read, whether it's life experiences and studies that you've done, whatever is going to help, you need to establish the right to speak on this. When I met with my surgeon, who 4 years ago, April 21st, opened me up to put a brand new valve in right here in my chest. Because this one valve was gone. I shared that before. Okay, and I met with him, Joanne and I met with him on November 1 of not quite 3.5 years ago or so. He established his right to do the surgery. I mean, he had it because he had his MD. He was a surgeon. He taught at University of British Columbia. We knew something about him, but he said, "I do these surgeries. I've pretty much committed my professional career to doing these surgeries, and I studied and I've created new procedures." And he has in doing this surgery. He was establishing for me the right that he has to do the operation. Okay. Somebody's going to operate on you. You want to know they have the right to do that operation. Somebody's going to speak to you on a topic. You want to know they have the right to talk on that topic. Number 4, the fourth question they asked, the purpose statement. So they're asking, so what's the speech? What's the speech all about? See, the last thing you want to do is get up and just talk. By the way, I listened to some speeches. And that's what the person was doing. They were talking, and I was sitting there saying, what are you talking about? What, with clarity? What, in 1 or 2 clear sentences? The purpose of this speech is to inform you of all the dynamics that take place when you are preparing to go into a hospital for a major operation. Wow, got it. That's what this speech is about. The quality of forecasting and organization of the speech. You see, the audience is asking a 5th question. So where's the speech going? So then not just what's the speech about, but so what's the speech, what are the main thoughts? And so you might say, I'm going to share 2 major things you should be aware of or 3 things or whatever it is. So again, those questions are going on in the mind of the audience. And overall, I gave her an overall, like if I like on the sheet of paper on the side here, what I have written right here is overall good. She did an overall good job, but she can improve. Okay. And yes, I will get more picky on the next speech. The body of the speech. In this whole area here, these 3 areas, organization of the main points were clear. Transitional statements were there and were helpful. Supportive materials were clear, also were helpful. I gave her a strong, really strong score in these 3 together. I thought that her organization was strong structurally in the speech. And I gave her an E and a G. It wasn't perfect, but it was very, very strong. I gave her an E on her transitional statements. They were exceptional. They allowed me to follow. You're going from this point to this point, which was excellent. And I gave her on the supportive materials, I gave her an E here again. And what I wrote on the side over here is I wrote very. Like this was very supportive, very helpful in regard to this. Okay, so when I'm watching your speech, I'm paying attention to your organization. Was it clear? You just didn't keep talking, but you were going from one point to another point. And not only that, you had a statement that you used that helped me understand. I'm finished talking about point 1, I'm going to point 2. I finished with point 2, now I'm going to point 3. Whatever that is. So if you have 1 point, then a statement that says, okay, we finished talking about this, now we're going to point 2. When you finish with point 2, you say, I got a statement, and now we're going to go to point 3, if that's how many you have. And that's the idea that's behind this. And I felt this whole area here, that speech, if you've watched it, she just did a really good job in this area. I was very pleased with that. Okay, now let's talk about the issue of ethos of the speaker. The ethos of the speaker. I told you when we talked about this in class, I gave a lecture on this, on these 6 areas right here. I told you I believe this is the single most important issue in public speaking, ethos. Ethos is the perception the audience has of you as a speaker. How did you perceive the person? And then in the midst of talking about these 6 areas, I did mention to you that I feel that trustworthiness is the single most important one. It's the single most important one. If you're not trustworthy, you will not have an audience. If you are trustworthy and you turn out to be what you claim to be in your speech, people will listen to you from start to finish because you're credible. But all 6 of these are critical. And the issue of competence, I gave her a very strong EG. And the reason I gave her strong there is that she, in the area of competence, she made it very clear, as she did, which impacted trustworthiness. She made it very clear that she was a student at Trinity Western University in journalism. Okay, now remember, these 2 here, competence and trustworthiness, go all the way up here to number 3, related the topic to the speaker, establishing the right to speak. When she established the right to speak, because she was a journalist student and moving in that sort of a career direction, that she has courses that she has taken. She's written papers. She's had discussions in class. She's had interaction with a professor about this field. That tells me where she's at in life. She already has established a certain level of competence, and that's important and critical. You need to establish that you have some competence. Don't be careful. For instance, if you talk about being a person who's a gamer, you enjoy the games and etc. Well, that's good. You got lots of experience, maybe, and that helps to establish. But have you done any training? Have you read any books that help you? Any awards that you received? All these things add to a perception that you are a competent person and therefore worthy of being listened to, which is really important for the audience. And it relates to the issue, again, of being trustworthy. That all is connected to the issue of establishing the right to speak. But it's also, as the audiences listen to you, they're trying to decide whether you're trustworthy. Have you ever met somebody you were talking to and you weren't so sure you trusted them? Those little antennas in your mind go up. Well, how do you perceive a person? And in regard to that score, she again, with competence, she in both of these, she got E and a G mixed together. EG here, EG here. She was trustworthy as she spoke, and that is important and necessary in public speaking. Now, the third one is the issue of similarity and co-orientation. Okay, and this relates to finding common ground with your audience on a topic. The similarity, we have similarities. You don't have to hold the same positions, but you do need to find those common grounds that help you. When I spoke to that hostile audience I had mentioned to you about at an early childhood education conference, when I established that I too care deeply about early childhood, that I taught courses at the institution on early childhood and childhood education, that I was a parent of children who had been early childhood, now were older, that I had taken courses in this. You see, I established with my audience a common ground. Yeah, we have differences. We had some life perspectives about life itself and the basis of life differences, but we had common ground related to the issue of children. And so similarity, I felt that with her, she got a GA there. Yes, she did a good job with Canadians, but you know what? There wasn't as much common ground with people who came from countries where freedom of the press is not a reality. Maybe it should be, but it's not, whatever. And so I felt that she did not do a strong job there. We talked about that. Attraction. She got an excellent. Well, what do I mean by attraction? And I'm not talking about being pretty or handsome. Attraction deals with 3 key things: being dressed appropriately, and she was dressed appropriately for this audience. Secondly, is being comfortable in her own skin. What I mean by that is no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, okay? Matters not the color of your skin. You're a human being. You were made in the image of God. And there isn't one color, one race that is supreme. That's just not true. And it's being comfortable with who you are, whoever that is. Be comfortable with who you are. I listened to a speech today, and I'm just checking here. It's in this class. I won't say who the person is, but that person is let's see here. Yes, is sitting in this class right now. Okay, and I found this woman as a woman. I found her being very comfortable with who she was. I She did such a good job on her speech. I was impressed, and I found her being a person who um, was comfortable and was dressed appropriately and was comfortable with who she was and was comfortable, thirdly, with her personality. And it came through. She did a good job. Now, can she improve? Of course. We all can improve. And that really came across. And this gal here really came across appropriately dressed, comfortable with who she was in her own skin, and comfortable with her personality. She is who she is. That doesn't mean she can't improve in areas. Of course, she can. We all can. Thirdly, sincerity. Sincerity. She was sincere. This is her passion. This is what her career map is about. This is where she's headed. This is what she loved talking about. If we were meeting as a class right now in class, and she just opened the door and said hi to me, and I said, hey, Kim, could you come in? I was wondering if you could take 10 minutes and just talk about journalism. Tell me why you think it's so important. She would light up like a street light. She would share, smiling with energy, sincerity. She really meant. She said what she meant, and she meant what she said. And you knew she wasn't lying. She didn't have to. Very sincere about her position. And that has to come across. And that's a perception. Again, ethos of the speaker is what the audience perceives of you, being competent, trustworthy, similar to them, holding similar values, attraction, sincerity, and then dynamism. The perception the audience has of you as being dynamic. Now, I felt she was dynamic, but I didn't give her an E. In fact, I gave her an E and a G and an A. She definitely was more G, almost getting over here to dynamism, but for one problem. There was one problem, something else happened in the class that brought this down to average. So G and A together. And what that issue was the issue of fluency. She stumbled over some phrases and lost herself a few moments. So while she knew her speech quite well, she had those moments, and that she needs to reshape that more. And it took away from the dynamism of her speech, although strong. Okay, so good job. Now you may be saying, boy, are you getting picky? Yes, I am getting picky, because you're going out into the world and you're going to be giving speeches, and audiences are going to perceive you. And if you do the job following the science, going ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching all the way through, and you bring your passion into it, believe me, you'll have an audience. And what I mean by that is an audience listening to you. The last thing you want to do is have 1,000 people in the audience and only one person really listening to you. That's pathetic. That is sad. That's painful. And you'll do enough speeches, you'll understand what that can feel like. It's not fun. So the introduction of the speech, the body of the speech, the ethos of the speaker, all these are so critical. And she overall done a good job. Overall, I gave her on the issue here a good plus. So I gave her overall good, I gave her a strong excellent, and I gave her a good plus here. Paralanguage issues of the speaker. And I talked about that, about these 7 areas. And I gave her a good score here overall. On pitch, I gave her a good. And I gave her a vocal variety. I gave her a good here, also a good here. These are like cousins here. This is um, your voice going up, like up and down like this, not just flat line. Vocal variety is being able to use the up and down as you are expressing things such as joy and sadness and happiness and sorrow and all those sorts of emotions that are part of what goes on. So be aware of those areas. And she got a good here and a good here. They connect. In regard to rate, she got a good. And the reason she didn't get an excellent is that there were a few times she spoke really fast. And it's not wrong to speak fast. But there were times when she spoke fast that she should have. And that's when she was using statistics. I don't know if you noticed. When she started using numbers, she rattled them off fairly quickly. And you need to remember, when you begin to use numbers, you need to slow it down a bit or have a visual for students, for audience to observe at the same time, because numbers take a little more to process. If I simply said that car was going really fast, in your mind you're thinking that car was going really fast. But if I say to you that car was doing 90 miles an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone, or 150 kilometers an hour in a 90 kilometer mile zone, you immediately have numbers, and it takes time to make sure, okay, numbers calculate versus just the words. So she has to watch her rate a bit. Pauses. I gave her a good there. She had basically the right amount of pauses, which were effective as she was speaking. Volume. I gave her an excellent and a good. She did a great job. It was kind of fun to listen with ease. And she did a job in these areas in such a way that the audience, students who are taking the course now, learned a lot just from what they were observing. Enunciation. She did exceptional on enunciation. This was just strong. Well done. Excellent. Words were well formed, well stated. The only time she never moved outside of excellent in enunciation. On her rate going fast, she didn't do this, but sometimes if you speak too fast, your words can get a little bit slurred. Be careful. Fluency. On fluency, she got a G and an A mixed together here. There was a few pauses that she had that weren't needed. Part of it was collecting her thought. But the trouble is that pause, when it becomes extended, people get uncomfortable. And you need to know your material well. She also a few times fumbled over some words. And when she did that, that's where it impacted dynamism. So be aware that all these areas interact together, even though we're looking at them separately. So her fluency is something she needed to work on. Vocal variety, she did a really good job overall. She had life to her, as I mentioned, in pitch. She had life to her voice. So introduction, body of the speech, ethos, paralanguage issues. Again, I gave her a good here. So I gave her overall good. I gave her a strong. I gave her a good plus. And I gave her here a good. Now coming down to this area here, I gave her an excellent / good. She generally speaking did that. Okay. Now on gestures, I gave her an E and a G together. Now she just basically had really good gestures, but the reason she got mixed with a G is that some of her gestures were repetitive. I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes she kind of kept doing the same sort of thing. And sometimes that you begin to lose meaning if this is how you keep talking, if you just keep doing this. Your hands are just flapping. They no longer are interpretive. Like, if you're talking about something sad, then, your hands may drop. Or you're talking about strength, you might go like this. But she just kept using this sort of motion, and it took a little bit away. She had gestures, which were meaningful also at the same time. But sometimes they kind of were too repetitive. The other issue that I picked up related to gestures was her body movement. Now, generally, her body movement was fine, but I don't know if you noticed. There's a few times she bounced, and sometimes the bouncing, I wasn't sure how to interpret that. Part of that was her enthusiasm. She was talking about what she was passionate about, and that certainly came across. But sometimes that could have been misinterpreted. Okay, now eye contact. I gave her a good on eye contact. She did a good job. There are a few times I thought she spent a little bit more time with her notes, not a lot, but sometimes, and you got to be careful because if you have heavy notes, you lose eye contact very, very easily, and it's hard to really establish that. Only a few people I've ever met have done that exceptionally well using a manuscript mode and having good eye contact. Her facial expressions. On facial expressions, she got an excellent good. She had really good facial expressions. They were well done. She smiled. She looked serious at certain points, but she smiled a lot. She was appealing to listen to via her facial expressions. Please remember that the audience looks mostly at the eyes of the speaker, and then the face of the speaker, and then the body of the speaker as they're speaking. Those nonverbals, gestures and eye contact and facial expressions are so critical. Now, related to overall movement, here we are, overall movement. Her speech moved really well, so that's why she got an excellent here. But where she got only a good was something that she did. You have to be aware of this. If you watched it, maybe you saw it. If you haven't seen it, watch for it. If you didn't particularly notice it, watch it again and watch for it. When she was speaking, she was standing up front of the audience, like I am now. You're out there, okay? You're out there, okay? And the podium, she had a podium. And what she did is, I'm looking at you, she tended to stay from half the podium to the other side over onto her right, your left, okay? She never came over here. She stayed from here to here. She didn't go over here at all. In essence, subtly, without meaning to do it, she was kind of saying to the audience over here, you're more important. She didn't mean that. And this audience here were almost disregarded in regard to physically moving into that area. Now, she looked around more, but actually physically moving. Go back and watch it. You'll see what I'm talking about. And that staying on only one side of the podium, like, to her right, always moving over to her right, not ever moving over to her left, is a subtle statement that you don't want your audience to necessarily pick up. So you need to be aware of your whole person, because your audience is picking you up. Their whole paralanguage issues and bodily aspects, they're paying attention to that. And so therefore, you need to do all these things well. And that just doesn't happen overnight. You didn't learn to drive a car if you drive a car overnight. You basically had to learn all the fine tuning of it and become better and better the more you did it. Oh, that's what I'm saying about her. Really good speaker overall. Now let's go down to the conclusion of the speech. So we've talked about the introduction, the body of the speech, the ethos of the speaker.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
So in our speech, we speak through the camera. So we have to just look at the camera, or
Okay.
what should we do? Yeah.
A good question. Let me answer that question for you. I've actually shared this in class, but that's a great question to ask. remember I mentioned to you that I give speeches. I have given speeches, recorded speeches, excuse me. I'm not talking about for teaching in classes here, but were for my church and other places in this room here. And to my left over here is a closet with a black curtain in front of it. And that would be my backdrop behind me. And then I had an ironing board, and I used some towels wrapped into a circle so that my 3-ring binder would rest on it like this, that I could see my notes. And my notes were not, I spoke extemporaneously, so my notes were just cues of what to be saying. Now back here, I set up a, roughly where I'm sitting right here, I had a high kind of table and a couple of things on top of it so that my iPhone would sit on it, and then I could get it recording, so that it would record me high up and while I'm standing. Now I can't do that teaching right now because I'm doing PowerPoints. I need to have this plus that, so it doesn't work in this setting. Because if I'm teaching you in the classroom, I'm standing almost 100% all the time. So then in regard to audience, remember I told you set up an audience. And I've got my big mother giraffe sitting up there real heavy. And then I got the baby giraffe on the bottom. I've got a couple of sailor statues. And I have a window over here. You can kind of just, there's the window, okay, and windowsill, okay. And so I get myself, whoops, there. And so I would put those statues and the giraffes there. And if need be, if you don't have that, dolls, or even to take some pictures that you draw some happy faces and put them up so that your eyes look at all the faces. And what I did is that I see if I'm trying to get my camera here to, it doesn't want to quite do what it was doing before. Anyways, I put some happy faces or frowns or whatever you want on those faces, so that you look at those sheets of paper, or you look at that giraffe or that the statue or whatever, 2 or 3 things like that, so your eyes can move with it. And then of course your camera I had sitting right here, and I had these people back here. So when I looked back there, the camera caught my eyes looking beyond the camera. I wasn't staring necessarily into the camera, although partly it was. And it gave the image that I'm looking at my audience. And that's kind of what you have to do. So yes, you don't have a physical audience, you create one. However you want to do that, it gives your eyes, remember your eyes are looking at something. And if your eyes don't have something to look at, they'll look at notes or they'll wander around, okay? And you need to have your eyes be fixated on a set of focused areas, whatever objects you could use that will do that. I mean, I could have gone to my kitchen and got some plates and put it up against the window and had like a different colored sets of plates. My wife has several sets. And had these different colored sets of dish. Oh, what happened? Oh, what happened to my, can you still see my PowerPoint? Can you see my PowerPoint?
No, there's doesn't have PowerPoint.
Yeah, just all of a sudden it disappeared. Let me try to find it again. New share, let's see, your screen sharing stuff. Boy, maybe that's what happened there. Nope, I'm sorry, I blew it again. Hang on. I have no idea how that happened. Okay, I'm almost done too. I'm surprised this is happening here. Let's see if I can catch that. I wonder where that went here. To see if I can get that. Get that. Just give me a second here. I'm not sure why that suddenly, there we are. Come on. Okay, let's see here. I am not quite sure why. that happened. That is very strange. There. Can you see it now?
No.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second. Boy, just oops, come on, come on. I'm sorry, I have no idea. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you. Good. Anyways, coming back to what I was saying, you need to have something that helps your eyes. So you have to create what isn't there simply because this is COVID-19, unfortunately. Hoping that in the fall, I'll be in the classroom where we do it live and it'll be a totally different dynamic. Create an audience. Pictures. You could even have, if you have pictures of in-laws, like I could do that. I could set up a whole bunch of pictures that have stands. You create your audience. Okay, your eyes need to look. Get something for your eyes to focus in on, not just one thing, but because you're speaking to kind of from the camera, a broad sort of approach like this. For some reason, my camera when I moved it, it didn't exactly go back to where I wanted it to, so I am having trouble getting it to do what I want it to do. Anyways, we're almost done class, so I'm not going to worry about that anymore. Anyways, it's important to have it so that your audience has a sense that they're looking at you. Even if there isn't an audience there, give them the perception that you are doing that. Okay, now the last part, and then I stop. Her conclusion. I gave her an excellent on her conclusion. Her brake light was very clear. She said this, literally. Now, she said, in summary, immediately the moment she said that, it was alerting us that we were now entering into the conclusion. She went right on and said a couple sentences on about the summary of what she was saying. And then she went right into the instant replay. She did a really strong job. So in both these areas, she got an excellent on brake light. She got a good, excellent, good on instant replay. She went through her points. And then both her response desired and her opening upbeat ending were both excellent. And the response desired, she called us to do something, to do some reading, to do some talking related to this area. She was very, very specific. I would say she had 4 or 5 sentences that she used on the response she desired from us in light of her speech. Her upbeat ending, she came back to what she said in the introduction about those sort of strange animals mysteriously under our beds. That, in fact, in real life, those aren't true, but there are some things that are allowed to be there that shouldn't be, that we need to address them. And she said, and we can make a difference. So it was a very strong conclusion. This was one of her strong, in fact, as I would say, this was her strongest part of her speech, was this short little part in her conclusion. Okay, quality of research demonstrated. She got excellent good. I mean, she used illustration. She talked about things such as Watergate. Again, she might have let people know what Watergate was about because none of you were alive when Watergate took place, which was in the early 1970s. But it was about how important the press was in forcing the issue that literally brought down a president who had lied, and it stopped a war. It effectively helped stop a war. So the reality is that you have to look at all these areas as you're developing your speech. And that's what I'm going to be evaluating. So I wanted you to hear me talk through a speech that you've now commonly watched, or if you haven't, make sure you watch it because I sent it to you, the link to it, in light of what I've said. I think the speech lasted 7 minutes and a few seconds in length. So it's not like a long speech, but the same sort of length of speech that you're all to give. And by the way, be careful how long your speech is. It's to be a 6.5 to 7.5 minute speech, not a 10 and 12 minute speech, which some people have done. So just be aware that I'll be a little more observant of that in the next speech. Now, to close the class, let me remind you, we do not meet together next week, but you can hand your speech in, which is the persuasive speech in on Monday. If you do, you get 2 added percentage points. If after, you can hand it in up to the following Monday with no penalty for being late at all, okay? So just letting you know that. I remind you that some of you haven't handed in your speech. Some of you got permission because of reasons. Your first speech, and that needs to get done quickly. We're coming to the end of the semester. We don't have a lot of time. So I really want you to, I know you're all under a lot of pressure because of COVID, about where you live versus where the campus is in some cases. And then on top of that, you got assignments, you got other courses, and stay with it. Don't quit. Don't get discouraged. Don't quit. You can do it. You can finish. So I'm going to let you go now, and we will not be together next week. You can email me if you have questions, and I will be expecting your speeches either Monday of next week, which is a 2% added bonus, or by the following Monday. So gives you, if you need that little extra space to get that done, good. Anyways, I want to say goodbye, and we look forward to being together on the, let's see, what date is that? On the 7th of April, as we're starting to come to end of the class. Okay, and to you who are on the recording side, I trust that you'll be sure to get your material in as quickly as possible. Communicate with me via email if you have needs to. So I'm ending this class. Trust you have a great week and weekend. Take care.